This is CGTN, China Global Television Network.
Former Zimbabwean President Robert Mugabe hailed as a true African statesman in a state funeral attended by foreign dignitaries. South Africa to address social challenges fueling xenophobic attacks and the airline owner behind free repatriation of affected Nigerians. And no clear frontrunners as Tunisians prepare to elect the country's next president. Hello and a warm welcome to Africa Live. I am Peninah Karibe. Also coming up this hour. Why Kenya is optimistic about securing a non-permanent seat in the UN Security Council. And African female writers dominate in South Africa's top literary awards. All right, so we begin in Zimbabwe, where the nation has bid farewell to former President Robert Mugabe. Foreign dignitaries and ordinary citizens gathered at a national stadium in the capital, Harare, for his state funeral on Saturday. The late Mugabe, who ruled Zimbabwe for 37 years, died in a Singapore hospital a week ago at the age of 95. It's expected that he will be buried in a mausoleum at the National Heroes Acre in Harare in about 30 days. African leaders, both past and present, have been paying tribute to Mugabe. The current Zimbabwean leader, Emmerson Mnangagwa, has said that Mugabe championed the cause of African independence.
The age-old national question that is of our land, which had been occupied by settlers for over a century. To him, this was the grievance of all grievances of our people. As a result of his unflinching stance, the land has now been reunited with the people, and the people have now been united with their land.
Proceedings have ended at the state funeral of the former president of the Republic of Zimbabwe, Robert Mugabe, here at the National Sports Stadium in the capital, Harare. Several heads of state and government, former leaders, diplomats, as well as thousands of Zimbabweans gathered into the stadium to pay tribute to a leader who was described as an icon, a legendary liberator who left an indelible mark on his country as well as the continent. Many spoke highly of his contribution to education, empowerment of locals, as well as to the empowerment to the liberation and freedom of African people. Robert Mugabe received the highest military honors as well as a 21-gun salute to send him off. 95 doves were released to symbolize the 95 years that he was on earth. From here, his body is being taken to his rural village in Zimba, where people there will have an opportunity to pay their last respects. It will be brought back to the capital at some point for burial at the National Heroes Shrine, where a mausoleum is being erected and where his remains will be interred. Farai Mwakutuya, CGTN, Harare, Zimbabwe.
South Africa has been grappling with a spate of xenophobic attacks over the past few weeks. Hundreds of foreign nationals have since left the country fearing for their lives. CGTN's Olisa Njamela spoke to Kusela Diko, a spokesperson for the South African presidency. She first asked, what is the root cause of these attacks?
A lot of those are caused by underlying socio-economic problems that we have in this country. People of South Africa want jobs. They're fighting a drug scourge, and it's unfortunate, like the president just said now, that they would take this out not only on those of foreign nationality, but also amongst themselves. Because over the last couple of days, we've seen a looting of stores, both South African and foreign nationals, and these are some of the issues that the South African government is confronting, and harshly so.
We've had a number of foreign nationals who've opted to go home because they say essentially they fear for their lives because of the attacks. Is the presidency worried?
One death, whether it's a South African, whether it's a person of foreign nationality, it's one death too many. And as the South African government, we are very clear that ours is to ensure that that does not continue to happen in this country. The President has held a very good meeting with a special envoy of His Excellency President Buhari of Nigeria. And in that meeting, they reaffirmed their joint commitment to the shared ties between our two countries, our social and our economic relations, but most importantly also our people-to-people relations. So we continue to urge those who are fanning the situation, provoking more anger, perhaps through fake news that they're posting on social media, and really creating a sense of confusion and paranoia. This country is committed to ensure that its laws are implemented across the board.
So the President has delegated the International Relations and Cooperations Minister, Ms. Naledi Pandor, to go to the General Assembly of the United Nations this year, because we understand he wants to attend to critical matters here at home. Is this one of them?
The President says that, our nation's psyche has taken a serious hammering over the last couple of days, and right now is the time for all of us to focus on moving forward. We must focus on interventions in our economy. We must focus on restoring social stability. We must focus on one of the challenges that confront us as a nation of gender-based violence. So over the next days and weeks, he will be going around to ensure that he monitors the implementation of the urgent measures that we have called for to restore order and stability across various spheres.
The Nigerian president is expected to be here in South Africa for a state visit next month. Is this visit as a result of the attacks that we've witnessed in the past few weeks?
It's a long-standing invitation that President Ramaphosa had extended to His Excellency President Buhari. And this is because the two leaders recognize that as the regional powers in Africa, with Nigeria and South Africa having the two largest economies, it's important that we continue to cooperate. Africa's prosperity, Africa's development depends on all of us working together to ensure that we realize it.
Let's now head to Nigeria. Allen Onyema, the owner of the country's biggest commercial airline, Air Peace, volunteered to fly Nigerians willing to go back home from South Africa for free. His airline has already flown back the first batch of 187 returnees and is on standby to continue the flight. So just why is he doing this? Deji Badmas tells us more.
A leading light, an example to be emulated.
The CEO of Air Peace, Mr. Onyema, believes will show the world that Nigerians are their brother's keepers.
That is just a tip of the kind of coverage Allen Onyema is getting in the Nigerian media space at the moment, following his decision to provide free flights for Nigerians fleeing xenophobic attacks in South Africa. He was the first person to meet and greet with the Nigerian returnees just as the plane conveying them landed in Lagos. And here is that emotional moment of the meeting on board his Air Peace aircraft.
We want men like this in Nigeria. We want men like this, detribalized Nigerians.
Onyema launched Air Peace Airline in Nigeria in 2013, starting with just 7 aircraft. Despite the country's tough aviation environment, he's been able to build his fleet to over 25, making his commercial airline the largest in the country. Air Peace now covers several domestic, regional and international routes. So why did the airline chief executive decide to bring back the Nigerian returnees from South Africa for free?
We decided to do it free of charge for our country and for our people. We decided to do it because we want to show that it's not all about money, that one cannot go to his grave with his purse, neither can one go to his grave with his bank account. But you can go to your grave happily with the legacies you leave behind.
Over $700,000, that's how much this free flight is costing Mr. Onyema's Air Peace. The figure could even go much higher, depending on the number of trips his Boeing 777 eventually makes.
My pilots are ready. If the Nigerian High Commission calls us this night to say, oh, we have another 200 to move, we shall dispatch another set of pilots to go and bring our people back.
Mr. Onyema is doing all of this without being asked by the Nigerian government. His patriotism has received praises across the country, and he's been the subject of discussion on many local TV and radio shows.
It takes a good Nigerian, the sort of Nigerian that I will be proud of any day, to take this kind of decision.
When the National Honors List is being compiled,
I think the owner of Airpeace should be recognized, for the patriotism that he has demonstrated at a key hour of meeting.
We've been able to show the world that nobody can break the resolve of Nigerians. Nobody can break the resolve of Nigerians to live together as one nation.
He's indeed a clear demonstration of true and undying patriotism. Deji Badmos, CGTN, Lagos, Nigeria.
You're watching Africa Live. Time for us to take a quick break. Coming up after the break. Nuclear frontrunners as Tunisians prepare to elect the country's next president. And African female writers dominating South Africa's top literary awards.
How will your world change today? What happens here? What happens there? Or what you make happen for yourself? If it matters to you, it matters to us too. Your stories are the stories that need to be told. Africa Live. Find your voice.
Let's head over to Tunisia, where citizens are getting ready to cast their vote in the second ever free presidential poll on Sunday. With Tunisia experiencing economic troubles, this election will be difficult to predict. And while a clear winner may not emerge, Sunday's vote will still influence parliamentary elections in October. If no candidate secures an outright majority, the top two candidates will hold a runoff. Ballot boxes are being deployed to polling stations across the country a day before voting begins. They will be locked inside polling stations overnight. Meanwhile, civil society organizations have been monitoring the work of the Electoral Commission. CGTN's Adnet Shawashi has more.
President of the Independent Higher Authority for the Election said that the EC has undertaken regulatory measures prohibiting any violation on the silence day for the presidential polls on Saturday, which coincides with the start of the election campaign for the legislative elections. Over 60,000 observers are monitoring the whole election process.
The law is clear. Any violation on the silence day will be reprimanded. There are over 15,000 local observers in addition to foreign organizations. The whole Tunisian territory is covered by observers, including polling stations abroad.
The Muraqibun network indicated it followed the electoral operation in the constituencies abroad, which had started Thursday and will continue till Sunday. The organization mobilized 80 national observers accredited by the EC to cover 44 polling stations in Germany, France, Belgium, the United Kingdom, Lebanon, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and the United States.
Presidential candidates must remove all ads from the streets. They don't have to talk to electors directly or indirectly in meetings via the media or social networks. We're also monitoring the surroundings of polling stations. We'll issue a detailed report.
Interim President Mohamed al-Nasser received the Vice President of the European Parliament, who heads the European Union Election Observation Mission. Fabio Massimo Castaldo presented the head of state with an overview of the work of the Electoral Observation Mission, composed of about 100 observers and electoral analysts in 24 governorates.
The observation mission shows that the European Union will monitor the polls closely and that all procedures are respected. We are expecting the consolidation of Tunisia's solid legal pillar in the election process.
The Electoral Institute for Sustainable Democracy in Africa Observation Mission arrived Thursday in Tunis at the invitation of the EC. It includes heads of election management bodies, representatives of organizations and civil society activists from Africa, as well as independent experts from 15 countries.
Interim President Mohamed al-Nasser has reaffirmed the principle of administrative neutrality at the national, regional and local levels throughout the electoral process. The head of state, the election authority and the civil society have called on Tunisians to vote and to exercise their right as citizens. Adnan Shawashi, CGTN, Tunis.
Kenya is set to officially launch its campaign for one of the non-permanent seats at the United Nations Security Council after the African Union endorsed it. Kenya won the endorsement after garnering 37 votes against Djibouti, which also expressed interest in the seat.
Kenya's bid for the non-permanent United Nations Security Council seat took off early in 2019 at the African Union in Addis Ababa, where it beat Djibouti in a vote. Djibouti congratulated Kenya, but later appeared to withdraw its support, stating that it would remain in the running for the seat. Kenya maintains that it is Africa's sole representative in the race.
So far, we have the African endorsement, but we continue to receive confirmed assurances of support from across the world, from the Middle East, from Asia, from Europe, from the Americas, from the Caribbean. And we believe that we are going to start our campaign on a very strong footing.
Ideally, AU's endorsement would almost certainly guarantee Kenya Africa's 55 votes. But even with this endorsement, Kenya has to get support from across the world to secure the seat when the election is held in New York in 2021, enabling it to join the 15-member Security Council. Kenya will need to secure votes from at least 2/3 of the United Nations member states in order to secure a seat on the United Nations Security Council, which comprises countries such as China, France, the Russian Federation, the United Kingdom, and the United States. There are 10 fixed-term membership slots shared among African and Asian countries. The General Assembly elects non-permanent members for 2 years. Kenya has previously served 2 terms as a UN Security Council non-permanent member in 1973, 1974 and 1997-1998, and is keen to secure another term in order to boost its position as a regional diplomatic hub.
Our candidature is themed Peace and Security for Sustainable Development. And we will focus on an agenda that enhances the relations between the Council and the African Union and the regional peace and security mechanisms, including the AU Peace and Security Council, the IGAD, ECOWAS, and all the other regional security mechanisms.
But Djibouti's determination to vie for the same position poses a challenge, owing to the little country's close ties with powerful allies. As the race heats up, Kenya is preparing to launch its campaign in Ethiopia before taking it around the world, efforts which it hopes will bear fruit come June 2021. Bulkisa Nyabwa, CGTN.
African female writers dominated the Sunday Times Literary Awards in South Africa. Terry Coogan and Siphiwe Ndlovu walked away with 2 of the country's top literary accolades and $7,000, which will help boost their careers. CGTN's Julie Shire reports.
Terry Coogan's compelling photo novel Everyone is Present earned her the prestigious Alan Paton Award. It documents her family's flight from Nazi persecution in Poland in 1939.
It tells the journey of a forced migrants, refugees fleeing Nazism, racism, xenophobia, ultimately genocide on the one hand, which connects with the global refugee conversation that is so much a part of the conversation the world's having at this moment. There have been many other genocides, but look at what happened in South Africa this week. We seem to learn nothing.
Fellow Zimbabwean author Siphiwe Ndlovu's debut novel, The Theory of Flight, won the Barry Ronger Prize. It's a story of love, loss and grief, which took 10 years to write. She hopes her work will resonate with other African readers.
I think it's always important to be able to find yourself in fiction or find yourself in a story or find yourself even in a movie. So it's important, I think, as a Black woman, and just sort of like as someone from the continent, to have a representation of what Black womanhood or Black girlhood is from an African perspective.
The Sunday Times Literary Awards has helped develop local literature over the last 3 decades, with the hope that homegrown content could grow South Africa's reading culture, which finds itself in a crisis.
So it helps to support reading in general by attracting readers to outstanding works. And sometimes one award leads to another, and ultimately it contributes to the growth of literature in our country. And to have people telling their own stories
The Literary Awards has been honoring South African writers for the past 30 years. These two women are now added to the library of esteemed authors in the country, setting them on a new chapter in their lives. Judy Shara, CGTN, Johannesburg, South Africa.
And coming up in sports. Two-time Olympic and world 800 meters champion David Rudisha rules himself out of the 2019 IAAF World Championships in Doha.